As September draws to a close, it's time to look at the best LEGO ideas submitted this month, September 2024, to see which ones deserve your vote. Whether it's trains, modulars, dioramas, or the medieval, here are my top picks from this month. Now, we need to start with a couple just from the end of August. There's always a bit of a crossover with these videos from month to month. But the first one is this, From Kitchen to Bricks, Linguini and Remy in Brickhead form. Now, if you're a Brickheadz fan, these will look great. If you're not, use the timestamps to skip ahead to the next one. Ratatouille is a little bit of a strange film in the sense that it has a bit of a cult following. Not one of the most popular Disney movies when you think about it, but there is a large portion of people who really enjoyed it. I am a fan of it. I thought it was a great film, and it would be cool to get these in Brickheadz form. Linguini is okay, certainly a nice looking Brickhead, although nothing spectacular, but it is Remy, who just looks absolutely brilliant. 2024 has been overall a really strong year for Brickheadz so far, so I think that this is an excellent submission to have made. It's already got loads of supporters, having been submitted only a month ago as I film this. So I've got no doubts this is going to reach 10,000. It's not something that I think for a moment LEGO would actually put out under LEGO Ideas, but it's a super concept, and if it gives them a push in the right direction to actually make this for us, you know, under the normal Brickheadz line, then that would be a big thumbs up from me. My next choice was this, Hansel and Gretel and the Witch's Cottage. Again, submitted just from the end of August. It's a fabulous looking build. The shape is exactly what it needs to be, but of course it's all these amazing colours that just pop. It would be a brilliant addition to the sort of fantasy, medieval, fairy tale world. And I just love the design of this. Of course, the source material, you know, the concept itself is great, but the way that this has been put together almost looks good enough to, just package up and put on shelves. Got a superb amount of detail throughout, and I think it's really cool. I mean, almost everybody has actually heard of Hansel and Gretel, has a basic understanding of the story, even though it's been changed a lot over the years from how it began. But if you had that on display in your home, somebody would walk in, instantly know what it is, and think that is a spectacular looking Lego model. Now, this was covered in Lego Masters, certainly in the Australian version, and that was even cooler. Brilliant design. That was too in-depth to be something that could actually be made into a proper model. This looks to be about the right size, decent piece count as well, 2,650 pieces. Shouldn't be silly money. I really like it. So to my mind, definitely one to support. My next choice is also a LEGO staff pick, E.T. Yes, I just really want to see an E.T. set made. My favourite to this day still remains the diorama that was done for the LEGO's 80 challenge. I think that was just exactly what it needed to be. This is obviously a much larger scale build, but nonetheless, it does do a really good job of capturing the charm of this incredible story. There's been a lot of submissions for E.T. over the years, and I think that LEGO must have the message that fans really do want this. So if they can sort out licensing issues, then fingers crossed at some point we should actually get a proper set. Will this be the one? If history's anything to go by, then probably not. But if you like it, support it, because the more that people do that, then the more likely it is LEGO will actually produce a set, whether it be under LEGO Ideas or a throwback. So absolutely, source material, we definitely need it. But as far as the design goes, credit where it's due, looks pretty cool as well. Moving on, up next I've chosen Anne of Green Gables. Whether you know the story or not doesn't really matter too much with this one, as it's just a really nicely put together build, using colours that we don't get too much, so it would definitely be nice to have, and it is very polished all the way around. A lot of care and attention that has gone into it. Definitely ticks the boxes for a lot of fans, being closed in all the way around, and it has some nice parts usage throughout the exterior, which just does look really good and would make for a very nice display piece. Now, on the interior, it's certainly not bad, although it could do with just a little bit more, I feel. We've got the basis for everything, which is really nice. Just doesn't look quite as polished as the outside did. Still, a good amount of space, though, for our minifigures to be positioned in, and it really wouldn't need that many tweaks making, in my opinion, to be pretty much spot on. So it's yet another one which, in those last few days of August, I think really does hit the mark, and would be a set that would fit in with a lot of people's setups, you know, if it was made. So let me know what you think of it down below. To my eye, looks really good. Now then, the last one from the end of August is this, the Muppet Theater with operational stages. I am such a big Muppets fan. I've already used the Friends Theater set and the Muppets CMF series, to put together my own stage for this, but an official one would be super, definitely deserving. I mean, Lego gave us the minifigs. We really do need to have a proper set just dedicated to the Muppets. I'm actually very surprised it hasn't been done by them already, because of course there's just such a massive fan base for this. And here's a build that has loads of fun details throughout. I like Gonzo's motorcycle there. It just has so much charm to this. I think it's amazing fun, and the fact that you can change the staging of this is a really nice idea. Makes it so much more interactive and does set it apart from other iterations that we've seen of this proposed in the past. So for me, I love the source material, as I'm sure many others do as well. I love the idea that's been had, the ability to change the staging. That is absolutely super, and the overall design of this, really nice as well. Big thumbs up from me, huge tick. Okay then, the first actually for September, and we're going to kick things off with this Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. First of all, what an incredible story, and it still blows my mind that Ian Fleming wrote it, who is obviously most famous for creating James Bond. But it's one of the most famous movie vehicles of all time. It's got to be. A wondrous movie to watch regardless of what age you are. There's so much fantasy and brilliance in there for kids, and also pretty scary with the child catcher as well. But of course, it is the car that is the main feature. And boy, this is a beautiful looking model. It's been very well put together. I love some of the choices of parts that are in here. The colours that our fan designer has chosen are pretty much spot on. The whole shaping of it is brilliant and not easy to do, actually, some of these shapes with Lego. It really is quite a difficult model to tackle. But justice has been done. It is beautiful. I really do like the look of this. Now, size-wise, it's 1,800 pieces, so definitely not too big. Would come in at a reasonable price point, or should do at any rate. And I think it's pretty stunning, actually. So very deserving of support, in my opinion. But more to the point, I just think if this was chosen, it has all the potential of proving to be a really well-selling Lego set. I think commercially, a lot of people would be interested in it. So that's why it stood out for me. I really like it. Let me know what you think of it in the comments below. Next up, it's train time. Another Flying Scotsman submission. There have been quite a few and none of them have been successful. But seeing as most wouldn't be able to afford getting an Emerald Knight now, I think that we do need to get a proper Flying Scotsman. And this does look like a really nice one. It is a shame that there's only a couple of pictures here. I would like to see this from different angles and certainly a close-up on some of the pieces that have been used. But from what we have to work with, it does look like a nice model. Sadly, if the past is anything to go by, it's not something that Lego are going to choose. I do think there have been some better iterations of the Flying Scotsman put forward than this, which were turned down. But as I say, there's only a couple of images, so I don't want to do this disjustice. It does still look like a nice model. Now then, the Nomad Yurt. There's been a few like this submitted to Lego Ideas over time, and none of them have ever really made it into proper contention, but I do like this. Our base plate is a little bit bare in a way, but there's plenty going on, and I like the fire and of course the little animals, but it is the yurt itself which is the main draw. It's going to have some fairly repetitive building, but it's a very good shape, pretty looking design, and when you get through to the interior, it just gets even better. I suppose that it would have a fairly limited appeal compared to some of the others that have been proposed, but it's quite refreshing and also quite pretty. I like the way it looks, all the different choice of colours, really quite spot on. So do I think that it would ever be chosen? No, in all honesty I don't. But it did stand out from the crowd, and that's why I've picked it. So I do think it deserves a vote. It's a really nice looking thing. Okay, next up, Little Red Riding Hood, the same designer that has put forward the Hansel and Gretel build. You can see the similarity, and to my eye, this is no less impressive. Firstly, I love the idea of placing this upon a book. I think that idea is absolutely brilliant, and in fact, it would have made this even better. It's really quite beautiful, again, excellent on the shaping here. The textures and colours used, I think, are spot on. Obviously, the minifigures, we all know what they're going to be. There'll be a big bad wolf in there somewhere. But I do have to take my hat off, because again, it's a story so many of us know. Immediately it's going to sell well as a build, but the idea of incorporating it onto the fairy tales book, that is excellent. Colours are all perfectly contrasting. The execution of the design is fantastic. There's so much polish here. It is brilliant. And the inside is no exception. It's exactly what you would expect to find on the inside of this sort of cottage. and it has some interactivity as well. In the bed, we have Grandma, but what's this? There's a little turning cog down there. I think we might find something in a minute. I like the chopped up wood and the wood-burning stove, of course, the gramophone. I do try to find things to sort of pick at with these builds, to offer balance, but this is pretty spot on in my opinion. Again, I just think it's good enough just to box up and ship out. Really is. I'm surprised there's not a picture, though, of the bed. I thought it was... here we go. So, there's the turning dial, and we have the big bad wolf on the other side. Fun interactive play feature. I think it's really super. I didn't even realise that there was a usable drawer in there as well. I love this build. I would absolutely buy this. It would be a day one purchase for me. Up next, we have this Steve Irwin, the Crocodile Hunter. Now, this designer has brought us this in the past, although in a different guise. It was using a minifigure format. It reached the 10,000 supporters, but was not approved. Now, it was up against some strong competition, but I thought this was a superb build. So it's nice to see that it's being proposed again, although this time with some changes. I'm not sure how I feel about the buildable version of Steve. Part of me did prefer the minifigure, but I like the added posability. The koala's certainly fun too. And in a way, being able to have the different expressions and make him interact with our crocodile friend here is cool. And of course, you've got the two different options for posability. So coming out of the water above ground, or in this sense, actually underneath. So that can be done just by changing the parts and flipping over the base of the diorama, which is a nice idea as well. I think that this would just be a very nice set to have. Personally, it was a real shock when he died, and he did so much for conservation that I think, a Lego model in ode to him is, or would be, a really nice idea, and this has been well thought out. So definitely deserving of support in my opinion. Time to move on though, and quickly before the train leaves the station, because what we have here is really quite brilliant. Being a fan of trains, I do have a tendency to be picky, and unlike the previous one on this list, there are plenty of pictures here, leaving it few places to hide. But quite frankly, it doesn't need to, because there is some superb attention to detail going on here. If we have a look at the real train itself, various pictures there, the colours, shaping, detailing, it's all pretty much bang on. And this, of course, was the inspiration behind the train used in the animated film Polar Express. A lot of fans who've actually wanted a Polar Express train to be made, well, here could be your way of basically getting it. It's a really superb model. We deserve and need another train, especially after the letdown with the Orient Express. I still quite like it. I own it. I've got them to change over the stickers and everything else to how they should have been, but there certainly were a lot of letdowns there, so I know that quite a few of us are hesitant when it comes to anything train related now being proposed on Lego Ideas, but certainly as the base idea itself, this is a model that needs to be done in Lego in my opinion. The way that the fan designer has done this here is really impressive. So again, for what it's worth, it's getting a vote from myself, and if you are a train fan like I am and would like to see this have a chance of being made, make sure you go over and do that as well. Now then, here's one that I've chosen just for the sheer brazen outlandishness of it from the fan designer. I don't believe for a moment that this would actually get made, but it absolutely deserves a shout out for our working Turing machine here that doesn't have an electric motor in order to operate it. You just turn it, and it's really quite impressive how all of this goes together. Very complex, that's why it's not going to get made. I think this would probably turn off a lot of people. It's really quite niche, but for me, I find it very intriguing. The way that this has been put together, I would enjoy doing it just for the learning aspect of seeing how our fan designer has thought this through. And of course, I'm sure if this was done, then Lego's going to change it in a way that would probably make it even more intriguing. So I would be very keen to see it done. I don't believe for a moment that it's going to be. How many pieces is it? A lot of information here from the designer if you want to go through and have a look. Circa 2,900 pieces, so virtually at the 3,000 limit. So yeah, it's not going to happen, but I just wanted to feature it because I think it's really quite impressive. And anybody who does put together mechanisms on the Technic side of things will probably appreciate the amount of time that must have gone into actually getting this to work. So thumbs up for that. Moving on now, though, we come to The Old Man and the Sea. This one is actually a LEGO staff pick, so it's already caught their attention and is rather a brilliant diorama. The Old Man and the Sea is a very famous book and has inspired a lot of subsequent stories to come after it, particularly in movie form. It definitely doesn't want to be a big set, but in a diorama, as is proposed here, I think absolutely spot on. It's the sort of thing that would be brilliant as a GWP. Unfortunately, it is, of course, too big for that. You'd never get something of this size and detail as a free gift from LEGO. They're just simply not that generous. But as long as it wasn't ridiculously overpriced, I do think that this would be a really great one to have. I love the detailing that has gone into it. One thing I will say, I do find that the sort of the background, there's too many conflicting colours for my eyes. I struggle with things like this. If we just go back to that first image, I almost feel like our old man is lost in his boat because of the amount that's going on. That may just be me. I just find when I'm trying to focus in on something that when you've got this much going on, not just in the foreground, but in the back as well, with the contrasting colours, it doesn't give me a headache, but it does make it, hard to focus on. So less is more sometimes. I'd like to see a little bit less than that, just personally. But I am nitpicking because otherwise the shaping, all the layering, it is really well done and an absolutely fantastic diorama. So it hasn't got that many supporters yet, but that said, it's only been a couple of weeks since I've started filming this. It's been chosen as a LEGO staff pick, and the root concept of this is fantastic. So a few tweaks on design if LEGO made this is what I'd like to see, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did choose it. Super little design. I would definitely be buying it if they made it. Moving on now, though, we come to another Ratatouille submission, this time, though, not in Brickhead form. So for those who don't like Brickheads, you can get Linguini and Remy in an actual set, and one that's got some serious detail going on in it. I mean, this is a big build. That's the downside to it. Would not be cheap. But that said, you are getting your money's worth because this is a fantastic looking modular. The exterior is impressive, but I think the interior is actually where this starts to shine. The restaurant looks superb, and the kitchen leading out to the dumpsters is great as well. A few more rats, I think, particularly the scene where the rats are all taking over the kitchen. That would probably make this even better to my mind. But as a fan of the film, the idea of having a set this detail dedicated to it really ticks the box for me. I think it's over the top. I don't think it would actually get made. It would be seriously scaled down if it ever was. But I like some of the design that's gone into this. I think it's a really nice modular build. A lot of fun that could be had from it as well, not just from a display point of view. Yeah, 2,999 bricks. It's right on the limit. That's kind of its downfall, but it is impressive. It's why I had to pick it. As a fan of the film, it would be a great build to have. My next choice is really quite different. It's alternate futures, not the sort of thing that I normally go for at all. And as I was scrolling through, at first I went right past this. I dismissed it. I thought that it wasn't particularly nice looking in the way it was done. Then I came back to it and thought just how clever the root concept of this actually is. A very simple setup where you do have 3 alternative futures of potentially where the world is going. Whether it is, sci-fi, spacefaring, cyberpunk, grunge, or post-apocalyptic survival. You've sort of got all the movies that there've ever been on potential futures rolled into one scene here. And I think that is very clever. So the way that it's put together, I don't dislike. There's definitely aspects I think that are good, but I'm not a huge fan. I think there's definitely room for improvement that LEGO could do here. But the actual idea itself that the designer has had, our fan designer, that is brilliant. And that is exactly what LEGO Ideas is about, coming up with just a brilliant concept. And for me, credit where it is due. I think that this is awesome. It wouldn't be expensive to buy, and it stands out as being refreshingly different. So I know it's got very few supporters at the moment. I think it's very different, so I'm not convinced on how it'll do it. It may well struggle, but for me, I think it's really quite impressive. So, cracking idea. I think it deserves to do well. Moving on then, we come to Milk and Cheese, the modular shop that we've all been waiting for. In all honesty, it's not something that I've ever thought of, but I really like it. I think the milk van is cool. The build itself really pops. I love the contrasting colours and all of the texture that's gone into it. This is almost an icon-style modular because it is designed to actually connect through to others as well. And I think it would complement those really nicely. The pictures on the inside are a little scarce, so it's a bit hard to see. Obviously very cramped, but it is interactive. That always adds to the fun, which makes it interesting. Lots for our minifigures to be doing, working on the gantries there, getting the milk, and then down here preparing the cheeses. It's just fun and happy, and it makes me smile when I look at it, and that's always good from a Lego model. And I love that as we move through the actual build, you've got, different bits of colour that link it together, but they're also really quite different too. Get very different staging bit by bit as the story progresses, and there's lots of little fun things going on throughout. And that's something that is, of course, really important with practically any Lego set, but I think especially when it comes to modulars, you want to be able to have these fun things going on that add to the story, that keep you coming back and looking through it. So overall, it is a big tick in the box for me. I think it's been really nicely executed. It's a fun idea, not something that we've had before in a modular format, but it would fit in well. So really nice submission. Still very early days as I film this. I suspect this is going to get quite a lot more support over the coming weeks and months. Now, that brings me on to this, something pretty much as different as you can possibly get, and probably not to a lot of people's taste. But for me, I think it's really quite great. The translation from Latin is "Remember you must die," a Lego reminder of your mortality, which you can place around the home. A bit morbid, perhaps, for some. I really quite like it. Don't know what that says about me, but it's very different. And let's just talk about the design work for a minute. The way the candle and candle holder has been done is very nice. The hourglass that we've got over here for, of course, time passing, perhaps a little bit more simplistic, but still well done. The flower, I definitely think could have done with more petals. It's a little bit of a letdown, but that's something that could easily be, changed and adapted. The book is also a nice shape, pretty well done. Also has a drawer in the back, and the skull is certainly not perfect. Improvements that could be made, but it's a very long way from being bad. It's actually captured the overall shape pretty well, so pretty decent from a design perspective. That is a nice thing that you've got the option to actually make the flower be withered instead if you want. So pretty good. It's not too big, shouldn't be too expensive if it was made. Yes, there's a few improvements Lego could make, etc. But the idea, again, I think is very refreshing in a morbid sort of way. I guess it's kind of niche. You're either going to like this or you're going to hate it. For me, I like it. I think it's kind of funny to have these sort of things on display, but the message that it's giving is also a very real one. And I think having this built, it could just remind me that, one day I'll be dead and there'll be nothing left because all of my life savings have been put into plastic bricks. Let's switch to something a little bit more uplifting then, pun intended, because we do have the chairlift with ski slope here. Now, first things first, I think this would be epic to have added to a winter scene. If you can imagine having all the different winter builds around, obviously we've got the Christmas post office coming out at the moment, but just also then having a ski slope with our minifigs having a whale of the time on their holidays, I think that would fit in really well. And to be fair, all year round, this is pretty cool. Now, it's sizable, and unfortunately, a lot of the pieces are going into making up the terrain. That's going to add a lot of expense to this, which otherwise wouldn't need to be there. That is probably the biggest marker against it, and because of that, it also is therefore a little bit sparse. It could actually do with more trees, in my opinion, definitely more texture of the snow, etc. But again, that's all design changes that could be made. Base concept, really good. And having a working ski lift, that is really fun. There is a video down here that our fan designer has put on. And as you can see, it's not the smoothest of operations, but again, with a few tweaks, I think that's a really fun idea. It would look great on display, be a super cool talking point. So if it was chosen, plenty of design things that Lego could change, make it smaller so that it would be more affordable, give it some more detail in the trees, more snow, on the roofs, etc. But you could still keep the operation on a smaller scale of the ski lift, and that would be really fun. So super little idea in that regard. I think it deserves to do well. Let me know what you think of it. And of course, all of these down in the comments below. So those are my picks of the ones that are gathering support that have been submitted in September. Bearing in mind, I'm filming this on the 25th. Of course, next month I will cover October's and the last week of September as well for any that come on in. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of my top picks from this month, and check out one of these two videos next. Look forward to seeing you on the next one.